Hey guys, I thought I would record just a quick screencast to show you how to use GoToWebinar, and that way you can reference this if you ever needed to. So the place to start will always be GoToWebinar.com. That's the place you'll want to go. It's just the quick and easiest thing to do. So this is the GoToWebinar home screen, and then at the top right, go ahead and click Sign In, and this brings you to the Sign In page. Credentials, my email address, and you're going to use the password thegrid1. So that's THEGRID and the number 1, all lowercase. And then you're going to sign in from here. It will take you to the My Webinar upcoming webinar screen. So this shows you everything that's in the queue and everything that's scheduled. So you can see like the small group DOM demonstration that Michael's doing on Tuesday at 2 o'clock. 16 people registered, and you can kind of look down the schedule here. I've already scheduled the smallgroup.com test that you wanted on Wednesday, March the 11th. But to quickly schedule a new one, if you wanted to, just hit the schedule a webinar button right here on the top right, and then title it, give it a description, identify what it is, whether it's just one session, a series, or a sequence. So I've set up your smallgroup.com demos as a series. And given all the multiple dates, and just basically repeated that every Thursday, I believe is what you guys wanted. So if it's just one session, give it a start date and the timing, and then hit schedule, and then it schedules it, and it'll kick you back to this screen where you can edit any of these that you want. So just for an example, let's take a look at the smallgroup.com test that you're wanting to run. If I hit edit here, this gives me the ability to manage this webinar from a lot of different perspectives. I can change the name and the description here. I can change the date and time if I needed to move it. The audio settings, I never really changed that. Branding and themes is specific to each webinar. So it's based on how you set it up. So if you set up a series, then you only have to do the branding and theming one time. So if I hit edit here, this will just give me the ability to add a logo to the registration screen. It'll add or give me the ability to change the theme colors for the registration page, as well as the logo and colors that they'll see when they first join the GoToWebinar to actually participate. So it's just a simple branding and theming. So you'll change this for each webinar, but if you've set up a series, like I've set up your smallgroup.com demos as a series, so you only have to do this one time, and I've already done that for you. So the registration page that you already have, that will be, you saw the dates and the drop down for all of the webinars, basically, I think through the end of the year. You don't have to mess with this. But because this is the smallgroup.com test, this is a completely separate webinar, so you may want to come in here and change the branding and themes for that specifically. Continue to scroll. I don't change anything on co-organizers or panelists. I leave that blank. This is your registration URL. So this is what I copied and sent to you for the other webinar. But if I click on the registration link, it takes you to the registration page so you can see what it looks like. I can edit those fields right here under registration settings, hit edit. And the first thing I can do is change the approval method. I leave this automatic, so that means I don't have to come in and manually approve people before they can join the webinar. So I just let registrants automatically come in. You may want to change that, as well as what happens when they actually click the register button. Do you want an email sent to you? Do you want to know every time when someone registers? You can do that, or you can have your own confirmation page if you build out your own page, or we just have attendees go directly to the GoToWebinar confirmation because it works just fine. And then what happens in a recording, and if you needed to create a specific webinar password for people to join. We don't have that. So, as well as add questions. So by default, the registration form has the name and email address, so you don't have to worry about that. But if you wanted to add other fields, you could do that here. All of these fields will be above the fold on the registration page, and I don't know if I think I've showed you that before, but and I can show it to you again. But these are the default fields that can show up above the fold, and I can't change what the field actually is. I can make it appear and make it required or not, but these are basic. If I wanted to create my own field, whether I wanted to say church size and so on and so forth, you can add a new question here. So let me preview the registration form. So what I mean by above the fold is there's this gray box here that says, you submit your information and it will only be used for this event and other services, blah, blah, blah. So all those custom fields that you might create would show up underneath this gray box. They don't show up here at the top. So just a word of warning there. Not a big deal, but just a heads up. So that's the registration form and how you can manage that. If I go back to manage webinar here at the top, then I have the overall settings. I can track registrants. I can see who's registered specifically. And then the emails. This is important. I've already changed this for this test, but you might want to change it. I know you're going to want to change it for your other smallgroup.com demos where it says reply to. So any emails that they receive about this webinar, you can give it a title. You can give it a specific name and then the email address that it responds to, that people can respond to. So by default, it was the ministrygrid.com presenter and it had my email address, but I changed it for this test. You might, again, want to go in and change it for the others. You can also send, or the system automatically sends emails to the registrants. Number one, a confirmation email once they do register, so it gives them the link to connect and all the instructions and all that. It also sends them a reminder email. It'll send them a follow-up email afterwards to those that attended, and then also you can turn on one that sends a follow-up email to those that missed it. And you can set the time and day of when that actually hits, and so you can edit that here. So that's really nice. I don't do a poll or I don't do surveys actually during the webinars, but if you did that, you can set that up and edit those here. And that's it. So I'm going to go back to my webinars, and you can see here's the list of all the upcoming webinars. I'm going to go ahead and look at the smallgroup.com test. So I can come in here and start this one right here from this page. So when you click start, it's going to open up GoToWebinar for you. If you don't have the software downloaded, it will automatically download it or ask you to download. So that's one step that you don't see here because mine's already installed. But it launches that, and then you're good to go.
Welcome to the webinar. You have entered as an organizer and may now speak to any other organizers or panelists on the line. When you are ready to begin the presentation, press the Start Broadcast button on the GoToWebinar control panel to allow all attendees to hear you. This system will notify you once you begin your broadcast.
So now you're at the beginning stages of broadcasting your GoToWebinar. So as you heard her talk about the Start Broadcast button, this is your control panel. So at this point, you can actually log out of GoToWebinar back here. So I don't even need to be in this anymore. This is what you needed to do to get started. So this is your main control panel. So right now the webinar has not started and you haven't done anything yet. So people can't see you. It'll say something like the webinar hasn't started. So people try to actually log on. They come to kind of a holding room where it says, things are going to start soon. There's no countdown clock or anything. It just says this webinar hasn't started. So the first thing to do is hit Start Broadcast.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
So now the attendees know that the broadcast has started, so it still has the title of the webinar in front of them, but they still cannot see you. They can probably hear you at this point because you're starting to broadcast as well as your microphone is turned on. So you can see that my microphone is turned on here, and the microphone is also turned on here. I can mute myself at any given point, so that way now they can't hear me. So if I wanted to start the broadcast so people knew it was started, but at this point they still can't see my screen and they now cannot hear me, but I can turn my mic back on and now I'm live. And then to be able to show your screen, you'll hit the play button. So again, the broadcast is started, but now you can hit the play button. If you have a dual monitor, you can select which monitor you want to actually share, and you can change that back and forth as you need to, and then simply hit the play button. And when you do that, it'll say on air, showing screen, and now my webinar, if anyone was actually logged on to the smallgroup.com test webinar, they would be able to hear me and see my screen. So that's how you get started. You can record this session by just hitting the record button and it starts recording automatically. If you wanted to see that, if you wanted to see all the attendees in the room or that are watching with you, you can see the list here, and you'll be able to see their names and you'll see their microphones muted, and that's by default. You can turn mics on and off of people, but I never do that just because there's so many people and that could get kind of crazy. So I just always leave the microphones off. The other couple things that you're going to want to know is the questions panel. This is the place where people can send you questions and comments, feedback. This is not a chat box, so there is not a chat box for the other end, so people can't chat back and forth with one another. They can only send you comments and feedback and questions. You can answer them directly Once they send a question in, you can answer them by typing your answer, or what I do is just answer the emails or answer those questions out loud. Most of the questions that I have in demos are really great questions for everyone to hear. So I'll say, hey, John has this question. I read the question and then I'll answer it, that kind of thing. So I try to interact with people and kind of act like we're all in the same room together. The chat feature is for you as the presenter to be able to send out a message to everyone, so it could send them something, but again, it's not a back and forth two-way communication street. So just a heads up on that. So that's it. So those are the main things that you'll want to know. Screen sharing, the attendee list, questions, make sure your audio is good. Your microphone, if you have a microphone turned on, you can click this button and change which input you need. So I've got a stereo microphone attached to my laptop right now. You can change it to just the built-in one, whatever, as well as the speakers. So you can, there's really nothing for you to hear specifically because you're the presenter. But, if you had turned on someone's microphone or whatever for you to be able to hear them, you need to make sure to have your speakers turned on. So that's it. You're walking through the webinar, and then once you're done, all you need to do is a couple things. You can turn off the recording. And that actually turns off automatically when you end the webinar. So let's say that we're wrapped up and we're like, thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time. Hope to see you soon, or whatever. All you really need to do is hit the X button and it will end it automatically. Hit OK. It leaves the webinar and you're done. And it will automatically shut down the recording, and then it will automatically tell you, hey, it's processing the recording. It does have to convert some stuff, and then it will show you where on your computer that file is. So you can go to that MP4 or MOV file and access it and do whatever you need to with that recording. So that's it. Once you're done, you're done. Hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions. Email me. I'm out of the office. That's why I decided to send this to you instead. Hopefully this would help. And let me know. Thanks, man. See ya.